What did football's own legends see when they looked at Derek Hales? Why does his name still command so much respect at Charlton Athletic? The answers don't come from newspapers. They don't come from statistics alone. They come from the men who shared a dressing room with him, who trained beside him, who watched him decide matches. Men like Harry Redknapp, who knew exactly the kind of footballer Derek Hales was. Long before Derek Hales became Charlton's record goalscorer, he had already earned a name that would follow him everywhere. Killer. It wasn't a headline, it wasn't a myth, and it certainly didn't begin with the moment most people remember. The real story is far more remarkable. By the time his Charlton career ended, he had scored 168 goals, more than any player in the club's history. Yet today, his name is rarely mentioned among England's greatest forwards. So what did football men like Harry Redknapp understand that the rest of football never fully appreciated? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. Subscribe for more forgotten football stories told by those who lived them. The more football people spoke about Derek Hales, the clearer the picture became. They didn't remember fancy football. They remembered results. Charlton captain Derek Hales gave one of the most honest assessments. He described Hales as having a devastating left foot. He never claimed he was the club's most complete striker. He didn't need to, because Hales had something else. The ability to decide matches. He didn't need 5 chances. Sometimes, he only needed 1. Years later, former England international Paul Elliott looked back on his childhood. The players he loved watching most were Derek Hales and Mike Flanagan. Before Elliott reached the top, Hales had already become one of his football heroes. Then came another powerful opinion. Think about those voices: a captain, an England international, a teammate, different careers. The same conclusion. Derek Hales gave Charlton something special. A striker who believed every chance belonged to him. And with the right players beside him, Charlton built an attack that defenders never enjoyed facing. The praise Derek Hales received didn't happen by accident. Charlton built an attack that brought out the very best in him. On one wing, there was Colin Powell, fast, direct, always looking to deliver the ball early. Alongside Hales was Mike Flanagan, a striker with intelligence, movement, and an eye for goal. Behind them, Captain Keith Peacock brought experience, composure, and leadership. Each player offered something different. Together, they became one of Charlton's most dangerous attacking sides. Former Charlton defender Peter Shirtliff later looked back on that forward line. His verdict was unforgettable. It has never been bettered. That wasn't said because they played beautiful football. It was because they understood each other. Powell stretched defences. Flanagan created space. Hales finished attacks. Every player knew his job. Every player trusted the others. The results followed. Charlton won promotion in 1974-75. Supporters filled the valley believing goals were always coming. Because more often than not, they did. Defenders could stop one runner, sometimes 2. Stopping all 3 was a completely different challenge. And at the centre of everything was Derek Hales, the striker his teammates trusted whenever the match needed a goal. Then came the season, when the rest of English football finally had no choice but to take notice. Every goalscorer has one season, when everything clicks. For Derek Hales, that season arrived in 1975-76. Week after week, the goals kept coming. Home or away, it made little difference. Defenders knew exactly who they had to stop. They still couldn't stop him. By the end of the season, Hales had scored 31 goals in all competitions. He finished as Charlton's leading scorer once again. Supporters expected something every time he entered the penalty area. Most strikers need confidence. Hales seemed to create it. 1 goal became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became another unforgettable season. The following campaign, he started just as strongly. 1 strike was later voted Charlton's goal of the season. It reminded everyone, his game wasn't only about numbers. He could produce moments that supporters remembered for years. Football people were beginning to realise Charlton possessed far more than a reliable scorer. They had a footballer who could change a match with a single touch. Those performances attracted attention. Soon, bigger clubs came calling, and Derek Hales faced the biggest decision of his career. When a striker scores goals, other clubs always notice. Derek Hales was no different. After proving himself at Charlton, he earned the move many footballers dream about. Derby County believed they had signed a proven goalscorer. The expectations were high. But football isn't always that simple. A transfer can look perfect on paper and still feel wrong. The goals didn't come as freely. The rhythm he had found at the Valley was harder to rediscover. The move never became the success many expected. A spell with West Ham United followed. Again, there were moments of quality, but never the consistency that Charlton supporters had seen for years. Some footballers fit every club. Others find one place where everything simply works. For Derek Hales, that place was Charlton Athletic. So when the opportunity came, he returned. Not because he had something to prove, but because he had come home. The supporters welcomed him back, and before long, the familiar sight returned. Derek Hales, finding the back of the net. Sometimes, the greatest transfer in football is the journey back where you truly belong. Supporters celebrated the goals, but the people inside the dressing room saw something more. Derek Hales hated losing. Every match mattered. Every challenge mattered. Every chance mattered. That edge made him difficult to play against. It also made him impossible to ignore. His partnership with Mike Flanagan became one of Charlton's finest. They understood each other's movement, often, without saying a word. One created space, the other finished. Then they swapped roles. Defenders rarely knew who to follow. Great partnerships aren't remembered only for statistics. They're remembered for the feeling they gave supporters. The belief that another goal was always coming. Season after season, Derek Hales gave Charlton exactly that feeling. And by the time his career was winding down, one achievement stood above every other. A record that still belongs to him today. Goals come. Records disappear. That is football. But some records refuse to move. Derek Hales finished his Charlton career with 168 goals in 368 appearances. More than any other player. In the club's history, managers came and went. New strikers arrived. Some carried bigger reputations. Some cost far more money. None reached Hales's total. For decades, supporters have watched new goalscorers emerge, each one hoping to write his own chapter. Yet one name has never left the top of the list. Derek Hales. That record wasn't built in one season. It was built over years. One goal, one match, one unforgettable afternoon at a time. Perhaps that's why Charlton supporters still speak about him today. Not because he wore the shirt, but because he kept delivering when the club needed him most. And even after football was over, there was one part of Derek Hales' story that no amount of goals could ever change. Football careers eventually end. The memories rarely do. Long after the final whistle, Derek Hales remained part of Charlton Athletic. Supporters still stopped to speak with him, still asked for photographs, still thanked him for the moments he had given them. He was never treated like a distant former player. He was one of their own. Years after hanging up his boots, Hales appeared at club events. He shared stories, laughed with old teammates, and spent time with the fans who had cheered him for so many years. What made that special was that nothing felt forced. The connection had never disappeared. It had simply grown stronger. Generations changed. Children became parents. Parents became grandparents. Yet every generation of Charlton supporters heard the same name, Derek Hales, the striker who always believed he could score, the striker who so often did. Records can tell you how many goals a player scored. Only supporters can tell you how those goals made them feel. And that is why the story of Derek Hales has never really ended. Because every time Charlton supporters talk about their greatest goal scorers, his name is still one of the very first mentioned. But perhaps the greatest tribute of all came from the football people, who knew exactly how difficult it is to leave a legacy that lasts. Football often remembers the biggest names, not always the best servants. Derek Hales never became an England superstar. He never dominated newspaper headlines. Yet the football people who knew him never forgot him. People who understood how difficult it is to score goals. Perhaps that's why Derek Hales became underrated. Outside Charlton, many forgot his name. Inside football, they never did. His record still stands. That isn't luck. It's consistency. It's trust. It's greatness. Maybe that is the real truth football legends were trying to tell us. Derek Hales wasn't overlooked because he lacked ability. He was overlooked because he spent his greatest years giving everything to one club. And for Charlton Athletic, that was more than enough. Subscribe for more stories about the football legends history should never forget.